We take sources, we dig in, and we pull out the key insights for you. Today, we're tackling a true giant of literature, way more than just a spooky story, often called the very first science fiction novel. We are talking, of course, about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And our mission to this deep dive, we're going to unpack the core story and the really powerful themes using a specific 15-minute summary as our guide to understand why it still hits so hard today.
Absolutely. And what's just, well, fascinating is how relevant Frankenstein's big questions still feel centuries later. It's asking these fundamental things, isn't it? Like, what does it mean to be human? What about creation responsibility? And that line between, hero and villain, it gets incredibly blurry.
And here's something amazing to start with. Mary Shelley was only 18, just 18 years old when she started writing this. Think about that for a second. An 18-year-old tackling these huge philosophical, ethical questions, not themes we are still wrestling with, especially now with AI and biotech advancing so fast. It really makes you think about our relationship with innovation, right? Okay, so let's dive in. The story, maybe surprisingly for some, doesn't kick off in Victor Frankenstein's lab. No, we start somewhere completely different. Icy, remote. It opens with letters, yeah? From this Arctic explorer, Robert Walton, writing to his sister back home. His ship gets stuck, trapped in the ice, and then they find this guy, half frozen, totally wrecked. Victor Frankenstein. And it's there, in that stark, isolating landscape, that Victor starts telling his life story. That it's more than just his story, isn't it? It feels like a warning. What is that framing, the icy beginning? Tell us.
Oh, it's such a brilliant move, narratively speaking. That extreme setting, the Arctic, vast, lonely. It perfectly mirrors the kind of extreme isolation that comes from Victor's ambition. And Walton himself, the explorer, he's also driven by this intense desire for discovery, almost obsessively. So you immediately get this parallel. Victor's story is presented as a warning, wrapped inside another story about pushing limits, maybe too far. It signals right away this isn't just an adventure story. It's a look into the dark side of human drive.
Right, that makes sense. So from that kind of ominous start, we jump back to Victor's early life. He grows up in Geneva. Sounds pretty idyllic, actually. Loving family. His cousin Elizabeth, who is very close to his best friend Henry Clerval. You'd think that background would lead to, well, a stable person. But even then, Victor gets this intense fascination with the secrets of life. It starts as curiosity. But when he goes off to university, Ingolstadt, studying chemistry, anatomy, it becomes a full-blown obsession.
Exactly. It moves way beyond just wanting to learn. It becomes this fierce determination, almost arrogance maybe, to break that barrier between life and death, to actually create life from, non-living matter. It's a huge leap from science to, well, you implied, playing God. He seems driven by glory, thinking his creation will be wonderful. It's all about that, can I do this? Without really stopping to ask, should I do this?
Right.
And that single-minded focus, that lack of questioning, leads right to the big moment, the creation, and then boom, instant horror. The summary paints this picture of him working secretly for months, putting together this huge figure from parts scavenged from graveyards, dissecting rooms. It's pretty grim. Then, stormy night, classic Gothic feel, he brings it to life. But the second it's animated, he's just repulsed, horrified by how it looks. He's so disgusted, so scared, he literally runs away, abandons it right there, and then gets sick himself from the shock. And that moment, that immediate abandonment, it's absolutely crucial. It really is. It makes us ask, like you said, is the horror really in the creature? Or is it Victor's reaction? His total failure to accept what he made. He pours everything into making it, then just turns his back because it's not beautiful. That rejection is the first domino. It says everything tragic that follows into motion.
As tragedies start piling up fast, soon after the creature disappears, Victor's little brother, William, is murdered, just brutally killed. And then, making it even worse, Justine Moritz, who's like a family friend, gets blamed for it. She's innocent, but she's accused, convicted, and executed. It's devastating for the family, and Victor's carrying this awful secret the whole time.
Yeah, and it's important to see that the creature's actions here, while terrible, they don't come from nowhere. They're not just random evil. They're a direct result of being abandoned, rejected right from the start. It's lashing out, definitely vengeance, but maybe also a kind of desperate, twisted cry for attention, for someone to see its pain.
This is where it gets really complex, I think. Victor, feeling guilty, ends up meeting the creature out in the mountains, this dramatic landscape again. And the creature confesses. It admits it killed William, but explains why. Out of this boiling rage and despair, because everyone rejected him, so suddenly he's not just this, lumbering monster. He has reasons. He has a voice A really painful story.
A very compelling story, actually. Quite heartbreaking when you hear it from his perspective. He talks about hiding near this family, the de Lacys, in the countryside, watching them. And incredibly, just by watching and listening, he learns language. He learns to read. He reads these major books, Milton's Paradise Lost, Plutarch, Goethe. And these books shape how he sees the world, humanity, and crucially, his own totally unique, lonely existence. He learns about love, family, society, all things he's completely shut out from.
And he holds on to this tiny sliver of hope, doesn't he? That the de Lacys, who seem kind, if they could just get past his appearance, maybe they would accept him. Such a human desire. But no. When he finally shows himself, it's the same reaction. Horror, violence, rejection. They drive him away. He's completely crushed.
And that rejection by the family he'd pinned his hopes on, that seems to be the final straw. That's when his sadness hardens into this vow of revenge. Against Victor, yeah, but also against humanity as a whole. And this leads to his demand. He finds Victor and basically says, "Make me a companion, a female like me. If you do," he promises, "we'll disappear. We'll leave humans alone forever in the wilderness." It's still rooted in that desperate need for connection, for someone, anyone to understand him, even though it's now tangled up with vengeance. It's a raw plea.
That demand, that plea. It almost feels like a possible way out, doesn't it? A potential, if grim, truce, and Victor, torn up by guilt, maybe fear too, he actually starts. He reluctantly begins making the female creature, but then his doubts just overwhelm him. He gets terrified. What if they have children? What if they create a whole race of these beings? So he destroys her, smashes the unfinished creation right in front of the creature. He breaks his promise.
And this, you could argue, is an even worse betrayal than the first abandonment. He didn't just reject his first creation. Now he's deliberately destroyed the only chance that creature had for companionship, for alleviating that crushing loneliness. He condemns it to solitude forever. And that act is what truly ignites the creature's full fury. That's when the creature delivers that absolutely chilling threat, "I will be with you on your wedding night."
Wow. And he makes good on it, horrifically. First, he murders Henry Clerval, Victor's best friend, the one person who maybe represented pure goodness in his life. Victor is devastated. And then, the wedding night. He kills Elizabeth, Victor's wife, his cousin, the person he loved most. The losses just keep coming, stripping Victor of everything and everyone. Victor gets arrested for a bit, suspected of Clerval's murder, but is released. But the grief is too much for his father, who dies too.
Yeah, at this point, Victor has nothing left. His entire world is gone. It's become as empty and isolated as the creature's own existence has always been. The cycle of revenge has come full circle, leaving both of them with nothing but grief and this need for final retribution.
So Victor, now totally consumed by vengeance himself, just like the creature was. He starts hunting him, chases him across Europe, completely obsessed, just this burning need to destroy what he created. And the chase leads them. Where else? Back to the Arctic. That vast, empty, icy landscape. Which brings us right back to the beginning, to Walton's ship stuck in the ice.
Exactly. And that's where it all ends. In the ice and cold, Victor, worn out, sick, finally dies on Walton's ship, and then the creature appears, one last time, stands over Victor's body, and expresses, well, sorrow, remorse even. But he also insists very powerfully that it was Victor's rejection, Victor's abandonment that made him into the vengeful being he became. It's a final, damning accusation. And after that, the creature says he's going to end his own life too and just vanishes into the icy fog, leaving his final fate, well, ambiguous in a way.
So that ending, Victor's obsessive chase ending in his own death, the creature's sorrow mixed with justification, what does it all mean? It feels like such a devastating cycle. No winners, just destruction. And that line between who's the victim and who's the villain is just gone.
Completely blurred. In that tragic cycle, that ambiguity leads us straight into the big themes that make Frankenstein still feel so important, especially now.
Right. Let's unpack those. First, there's ambition and hubris. Victor is like the poster child for dangerous, unchecked scientific ambition. He's so focused on, can I do this? Can I unlock the secrets of life? That he totally ignores the should I, the ethical side. It feels very relevant when you think about gene editing, AI, where innovation sometimes races ahead of ethics.
Absolutely. It forces that question, where's the line? When does pushing boundaries become dangerous? Victor's ambition makes him blind to his responsibilities. He's obsessed with the act of creation, not the being he creates. It's a powerful warning, isn't it? About prioritizing discovery over wisdom, maybe. About needing that moral compass alongside the scientific drive.
Which connects directly to the next big one, responsibility of creation. The book hammers this home. Victor's abandonment of the creature right at the start and then later with the female. It's the root cause of almost all the horror that follows. He literally just turns his back, refuses to guide it, teach it, even acknowledge it properly.
And that's not just about science labs. It feels like a metaphor for so many things. Parenthood, yes, but also societal responsibility. What about the technologies we create? The systems we build? Don't we have a duty to think about their impact, their integration, their potential harms? Shelley seems to be saying if you create something, you owe it something. You can't just walk away. Abandonment, whether of a creature or an idea, has consequences.
And then there's isolation. Both Victor and the creature experience this profound, crushing loneliness. Victor isolates himself with his secret, his guilt, then his revenge. The creature is isolated by default, by his looks, by the fear and rejection he gets from everyone, and this isolation just fuels their destructive behavior, traps them both.
It really underscores how vital connection is, for humans, maybe for any thinking being. When you're constantly pushed away, rejected violently, it warps you. The creature wasn't born evil. You could argue he was made monstrous by loneliness, by cruelty. It makes you think about how society treats outsiders, doesn't it? How sometimes we kind of create the monsters we fear through rejection and prejudice.
That leads perfectly into maybe the central question of the whole book, the nature of monstrosity. Who is the real monster? Is it the creature, who looks horrifying and does terrible things? Or is it Victor, the educated human creator whose fear, whose cowardice, whose inaction leads to all this suffering?
It completely flips our easy assumptions, right? About good devil beautiness. The creature shows moments of great sensitivity, intelligence, longing. He learns, he feels deeply. Victor, meanwhile, the human, he shows selfishness, terrible judgment, a lack of empathy, moral cowardice, really. Shelley forces us to look deeper. Is monstrosity about how you look or how you act, about your heart and your choices? Still a vital question today when we judge so quickly based on surfaces.
It really stays with you, that question. Listening back to this summary, thinking about these themes, what stands out most to you? Okay, that feels like a good place to wrap up our deep dive on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's just such a rich novel. Part Gothic horror, yes, but also this incredibly deep philosophical exploration that still feels urgent 2 centuries on.
It really is. And maybe the biggest takeaway is that the horror isn't just the monster itself. It's often in the lack of foresight, the shirking of responsibility, the failure of empathy from the creator. It's a call to consider the full weight of our actions, especially when we innovate, when we create.
So let's leave you with this thought to chew on. Thinking about Victor's ambition, his drive to create without limits, and the creature's desperate need for acceptance. What does Frankenstein tell us about the ethics of innovation now? How do we make sure our own creations, AI, new technologies, maybe even social structures, aren't just brought into being and then abandoned? How do we ensure they don't become sources of tragedy or alienation? It's a question from 200 years ago that feels like it could have been written yesterday, something that needs our ongoing thoughtful attention.